He's a former national championship winning football coach. She's a world-renowned clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and relationship expert. Together, they make an unbeatable team. It's now time for the Sports Love Life Show. Let's join Jamie King and Dr. Judy Ho.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Love and Life, along with Dr. Judy Ho, our great co-host, of course, licensed clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and world-renowned relationship expert. We go tonight to Radford, Virginia, home of the legendary, and folks, we're so excited to have him. Many people, and if you're a coach like me, you know this guy is the very best, called by many the greatest defensive coordinator in college football history by many. Bud Foster and his beautiful wife, Jessie, we welcome you tonight to Sports Love and Life.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jamie. I appreciate it.
You got it. And of course, Hokie Pride tonight everywhere. My brother, of course, said, it's finally time you got some superstars on with Coach Foster. And of course, all of the family that loves Virginia Tech, they all love you. And we're so glad you're here with us tonight. I want to start the program tonight. Your relationship, your love story. Of course, you got married February 3rd, 2019. Can you talk about how it happened and what led you to each other?
Yeah, you know, it's a long story. Both of us were had long-term marriages. You know, in the coaching world, it's marriages can be challenging, as you know. I was married to a beautiful lady. We just kind of went in different directions. You know, when it's all said and done, people change and whatnot. And you know, a long story short, we were going through the divorce. Jessie, as I found out, I didn't really know her. I knew of her. She was going through the same thing, and kind of fell in my lap when it was all said and done. Now that wasn't an easy. It wasn't that. It wasn't that easy. But you know, you navigate through life, and not that I was looking for anything else. I wasn't. It was just I was going in a path where my ex and I were just going in totally different directions. And as I was winding down my career, we had different things that we excited us, and it wasn't together when it was all said and done. And, you know, so I found this young lady who,
I'll take it.
Yeah.
50 is the new 30.
But, you know, it's just kind of neat how all these years, and as we go through this story a little bit, it's kind of funny to hear it from her side of it, my side a little bit, because I did know, I knew who she was, even though I didn't know her. We had met a couple times. She really didn't have much to do with me. But I swooned her. I got her back on my side a little bit when it was all said and done. Now we're happy ever after, but you know, it does it. You know, I was fortunate. I found a special lady, and one that I was, you know, I'm extremely happy with, more than I've ever been in my life. We have so many shared interests, and that's what makes this thing really, really special. She's extremely smart, which a lot of people question that because she's with me. And but, you know, it's just I found my soulmate, and it's taken a while. Not that I was searching for it. That wasn't. I had one, I thought. And but, you know, that's part of relationships. And you know, but it was, we'll get into that, I'm sure, and I don't know how detailed you want me right now, but it was,
He's like, no, we're good.
Yeah, but it was, we kind of, you know, she kind of, so to speak, fell in my lap, and, you know, I couldn't be happier right now, you know, with where we are and the direction we're going. We're a blended family. You know, I have 3 grown children. I have 4 grandkids and 1 on the way. We just found out we're going to have another one. And she has 3 boys who our family has really engaged one another extremely well, really cares about each other. Her sons are extremely respectful and know that I love her tremendously, and would always have her best interest at heart, as I would theirs too. I think they've learned that and earned my trust and respect. And that's, I think that's something that was really important for me. I'm not going to replace their father, but at least I want to be somebody that they trust and know that they can count on me to look after their mom, most importantly, but also to be a friend to them, a mentor to them, to be somebody that they can trust and know that I'll have their best interests at heart when it's all said and done. So,
and he's leaving out kind of the funny part of the story about, like, I really thought that him and I would have absolutely nothing in common. So when he was starting conversation with me, I mean, I'm not indigenous here, so I didn't really care about tech. I know even less about football. And so I really just, I mean, I remember he said to me, he's like, "You just don't like me, do you?" And I said, "No, I just don't. We don't have anything in common. So like, let's just like move forward." And so,
well, you need to tell him about the swag story, the swag. This is now this kind of what broke the ice.
So he did say to me, he's like, "So why do you not like me?" And I said, "So here's the thing. I don't like football, don't know about tech, and I do not like swagger. And you have way too much swagger for my taste." And he's like, "Wait a minute. I'm limping. I have a torn meniscus. Like, I'm not coming in here hot. I'm limping. And I was like, "Oh, okay." But my favorite thing, which you know, this is a classic line if anyone out there wants to use it. He's like, "Your accent is familiar, but I can't quite place it, but it's so familiar." And I'm like, "Yeah, I bet."
She's rolling her eyes, as she's saying that.
I mean, I was just like, "Dear, come on, come up with something else."
Coach.
And so I said, "You will not know where I'm from. I am from very rural Illinois. My mom and I, we lived in a town of 250 people. So trust me, you do not know where I'm from." Then he's like, "Wait a minute. Well, I'm also from rural Illinois." I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "All right, well, where were you from?" So
she's like, "You'll never know." She's like, "Really? Are you going? You're nice." I actually said, "Let's start all over again." And it's kind of led to this. But
so when I told him the town, he was like, "Well, yeah, I know that town. My mom, I'm from Nokomis, which is literally what, 25
miles away."
So what's ironic is we both know people from home that know each other. Yeah. So we have had so many paths that have crossed well before him and I crossing that it was just sort of ironic. And he's like, "Well, I can't be a bad guy if I'm from there."
Well, and that's what broke the ice. All of a sudden, her guard came down, and then all of a sudden, conversation began to flourish. I mean, it was just, it was like a flower blooming. We started rolling with it. I guess she just knew that, well, if you come from that area, there's good people, good, solid people. And so I think she started to look through in her eyes, which, as you know me, Jamie, I'm the least of being swagger, and I'm pretty, down to earth and that type of thing. And I guess she just had an idea of what, she thought how coaches and athletes and some people carry themselves a little bit, so.
Well, maybe we all have our biases.
Yeah. Sure. But anyway, that kind of broke down the barrier. And, it's really started from there that, that she realized I wasn't all that bad of a guy, and that maybe there's something there that she could work with a little bit.
I mean, give or take. It goes day by day, but normally there's plenty. Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we really kind of met. I actually was coming back from a spring game, and a buddy of mine called me. I was getting ready to head home to the lake and to my house, and my wife and I were, we were split at that time. And so he calls me and said, "Why don't you stop and we'll grab a drink and have dinner?" And I said, "Okay." And it was like this whole night was like last minute. And it was, I turned off at the last exit. It was right there. I went and met him. She walks in. I'm kind of in a round, making a long story short. But at the end of the day, I told her, "I'm going to my car. I'd love to get your number and all this kind of stuff." And I said, I was kind of like, I was a little tipsy by that time. And I said, "I'll give you 10 minutes. How about that?" That was a little arrogant, from my end of it right there. And she's like, "Yeah, whatever." But I went and I swear to goodness, at 10 minutes, I turned on my my vehicle, put the car in reverse, and at that same time, the door flung open, and she popped in. So
Well, and
it was
so on the other side of it, I didn't even know there was a spring game. I didn't even know there was a spring game. I knew nothing about spring game. So my girlfriend and I, we were supposed to go to Blacksburg. She obviously didn't know there was a spring game either because we had planned dinner in Blacksburg, but she was running late. And so I said, let's just go in town. It's just, you're running late and, it'll be less hassle. And so my girlfriend, of course, saw our dialogue and heard our dialogue. And so when he's like, all right, I'm giving you 10 minutes. I was like, you do that. You just go right. You give me 10 solid minutes. And I'm laughing. And my girlfriend's like, yeah, right. I was like, I know, right. And I don't know what it was because listen, when he said that, I was like, okay, now you're even more annoying. Right. And so then all of a sudden I almost had this, it was nearly like a panic second where I was like, has it been 10 minutes? What's going, wait. I'm going to go. And my friend says, no, you're not. You don't even like that guy. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. I'm going to go. And so I did. And then here we are.
I guess it was my, I'm one of those known for being brutally honest. Maybe that's what it was. She just saw that what you see is what you get. And there's no swagger and there's no game from a standpoint of, I was out of the dating scene for over 30 years. So, this was, hey,
here we are.
Here we are, though, a few years later, happily married, and I enjoy every moment I'm with her. And
I know more about football, a little more,
yeah,
and
good.
I know the colors now.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm starting to put it all together.
So with that said, that's kind of,
Here we are.
I know that was a lot, but it was a whirlwind in a short period of time.
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Dr. Paul Ross and his Amazing Foot Cream. Amazing doctor, amazing cream. Give your feet the very best with Dr. Ross's Amazing Foot Cream. It's the Sports Love Life Show with Jamie King and Dr. Judy Ho.
Well, I love hearing you guys be so passionate about your story and just so much of your journey already just in these last few years. And I was wondering how you guys have been doing during obviously this very unprecedented time, this last year and a half. It's been so difficult for everybody. How have you guys kept your spirits up and, been able to hopefully still commune with your blended families and still have a sense of community in spite of everything that's going on?
Well, it's really been, that's kind of who we stuck to is our family. And it really, it was good timing for me. I stepped away from coaching and to find out if I was going to miss it or not and all those kind of things. I found that I did it at the right time. But it was just really gave us an opportunity that we spent so much time together. Jessie and I we did everything together. I mean, we're attached to the hip, still are. And, but went for walks. We just do different things, dinners together, making our own stuff. And I'm not, living the life of a coach. I ate at dining halls and fast foods and things of that nature a lot. And
I'm vegetarian. So it's been he is not a vegetarian. So that's been an interesting.
But it was also time for our kids to really, because when we did things, we did it as a family. And it really enabled them to get to know one another, get to be very close with one another. They really do enjoy each other's company. There's no jealousy whatsoever, between from my kids to hers or hers to mine. They've taken in my grandkids, our grandkids. They love Jessie and they love her boys. And, it just, this time has really, we've grown even that much closer because, you're going to find out a lot about it. If somebody, aggravates you here a little bit here and there, and I might do that. But if we had anything, that's the one thing. Jessie's very intelligent, very open, and will challenge me a little bit probably to communicate and speak my feelings and, and that's been good for me.
Maybe speak the full gamut of feelings. not just when you're aggravated with
Yeah.
me. But yeah, but I think it's such a good question, because I do think that, for us, he went, from coaching, which meant that I really just clung on every little second that I could, kind of get my foot in the door with him, to, really, he was starting to do the 3 days, and then all of a sudden we were together nonstop. And so there was an adjustment. For one, there was an adjustment for both of us in our careers, because we are fast movers. And so we had to learn to slow down, and to slow down together, and to slow down on our own. And I think it's what almost, most families, whether they're newly married or blended, it's just, all the norms were turned upside down. So even the places we would go to eat together and the things we enjoyed, all of that we had to recreate. It had to become a new norm. And as far as being in the community, I'm on our city council. And so for me, there was a lot of pressure, probably a lot more pull from being an elected figure in the community, because, we didn't have any precedents for this. And so, he was a great sounding board for a lot of that, a great confidant, helping me kind of weave my way through that too. So
We're definitely a team, that's for sure. She's good with, I'm still involved with a little bit with some recruiting. I'm involved with some with fundraising and doing things of that nature now with the university. And she is outstanding with that, and just does a great job. And like I said, we're a team that really cares about each other and is there for each other. And I think the COVID probably even brought us even that much closer for us to be able to communicate, and just we're able to open up and talk about a variety of topics and different things. And it's as rough as it is and rough as it was for us personally, it was it was a good time for my career to see how I would adjust. And then with her, she has a couple of things. She has her own business besides. She had to adjust with that, but then with city council, just we were able to handle it pretty good, but we did it together.
Well, when you look at your illustrious career, 33 years in the business, and you get together and all the things you've done, the greatness that you had. Now, Jessie, coming in and not knowing him and not knowing a lot about Virginia Tech and football, this guy right here, and I'm talking from a coaching standpoint, intensity with a capital I. I used to watch him, and I was a former head coach at a minor league level. When I'd watch him and I'd say, I'd love to have that guy on my staff, because he's just always on go and such a tremendous leader. But I worried about him because he got so fired up that he wanted to be out there, because he used to be out there as a player. We know that. But when you see him now, I remember I asked Mike Singletary a couple of weeks ago, and his wife, I asked her, Kim, I said, Kim, was he more Chicago Bear or Teddy Bear? We know Bud, when he was there on the sideline, as far as the intensity, he seems like he's softened up a little bit out of football. Can you talk to him now, post-football? And have you heard the stories, I'm sure more than enough, of the intensity when he was there to now?
Yes, I've heard about whiteboards and all kinds of things that I miss seeing him with a certain little outburst on the sidelines on occasion. But, I will tell you, I tell people this all the time. I don't know if I want him to hear this, but when people were hearing that we were together, I did have a lot of my close friends say, oh my gosh, I mean, does he have a temper? I mean, we see him on the side. Are you sure? Because you guys will be like two bulls locking horns. Right. But you know what? This is the truth. And I hate for him to hear me say this out loud, but between the two of us, he probably is far easier, truly, to get along with. He is really one of the most genuine, kindest, sweetest people that I've ever had the pleasure to meet. But I know with coaching, he wasn't just doing it, because he wanted to win. He really wanted to get the best for the boys that were playing. I mean, he was passionate on behalf of those students and also the university. So, it's been nice hearing. It's probably one of the benefits of him stepping out of coaching, is it gave me the opportunity to hear some of those stories that I might not have heard And it just made me love him more. But as far as that intensity, he still has intensity. I will tell you, we were able to watch one of the games in a box at Tech, and luckily we were in the box by ourselves. So what I can tell you, he still has that intensity during the game. I told him, I said, when you're on the field, his mom used to watch the games, and he'd call her after every game and she'd say, son, we can all read your lips. That. So I did tell him, I said, so if we're ever in a box situation, they can actually hear you now. And so he still has it. He still cares a great deal about the kids. We had gone to dinner with Coach Beamer and Charlie Wiles, I guess, I don't know.
Charlie was a longtime D-line coach for me and is now at NC State right now.
And this was right after, he had made the decision. And I remember asking Coach Beamer, I said, so, when does this get easier for you, like to watch? When will I feel like he can go to a game and enjoy it for the sake of the sport, for football? And, he was very thoughtful. He thought about it a little bit. And he said, when my last group of kids that I'd recruited, once they had graduated, then I could look at it without that same sort of, intensity, because you're still all about Tech and all about Tech football, because you help build something that they both feel is so special. But it allowed him to kind of exhale a little bit and just be in the moment of the game. And so I've held on to that, because I think that's coming, but it was not there this last season when we were in the box. He's not there yet.
And there's a few more years of guys, we with COVID now, you've got some guys that'll have extended seasons, and majority of the defensive kids right now are still guys that I was in their home, with their parents, and and there's an emotional tie in there, and obviously there is. I've got a passion for Virginia Tech because of what we accomplished, and what we put into it. But I feel so strongly about those young men, and I'm wishing the very best for them. So I'm still emotionally tied in, and will be probably for few more years down the road when it's all said and done with some guys, particularly on our side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball.
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Cremo and their fine line of skin creams, body washes, colognes, beard products, shave creams, and more. Cremo, astonishingly superior.
Unbelievable career, Dr. Judy. Of course, he's a Virginia legend. And of course, I did wonder one question. Back in 2015, when Coach Beamer retired, you were up for the job and it went to Justin Fuente. I was disappointed for you. I know many people were in the coaching community, because everybody felt you had paid your dues to that point. You were the guy. Looking back at it now, years later, 2021, were you bitter? I mean, you have a great core of people there behind you that love you, and they kept you on and you stayed on. But looking back at it now, was there a disappointment level there that you look back and say, man, I wish I could have had that to show what I could have done?
Yeah, I mean, there was a disappointment factor. I would be lying if I didn't say that. But I don't cry myself to sleep or have nightmares that I didn't get an opportunity to be a head football coach. I think my body of work showed that I would have been, in my opinion, I thought I would have been an outstanding head football coach, because I could lead, I could motivate, I cared, I could put together a great staff. And, the product we put on the field, it kind of says itself. And that's what I felt like I could have put on, not just defensively, but as a football team. But I had some opportunities. I was a finalist for the Clemson job when Dabo got the job. It kind of came down to myself and him. I was a finalist at Virginia, though Terry Holland told me, that's when they hired Al Groh. And Terry told me, Bud, we'd have a hard time hiring a Hokie. And I remember saying, Coach, I appreciate that. My diploma does not say Virginia Tech. I'm a Hokie by association, but I hope in their back of their mind, they wish they hired me. But anyway, I was very select at the time about pursuing certain jobs. I wanted a Power 5 job. I felt like I didn't have to take a step backwards to take another step forward. At the time, Virginia Tech, we were a top 10, top 15 team every year, and a top 10 defense every year. And, we were the ESPN darlings. Us and ESPN grew up together on Thursday nights. And, we were playing in New Year's Day bowls, and we were competing for championships for about 20 straight years. And I felt like I loved that we were in that kind of competitive nature all the time, and so I was very select about what I wanted. And Tech was one of those jobs because I really felt like I think some people felt that we would just carry on the tradition of Coach Beamer. And, I always felt like with Coach at the end, we were being recruited. We needed to change some things. We were down in staff and things of that nature as far as recruiting staff and things of that. And that's what Justin's done a great job of. But that was something that we needed. We got passed by a little bit. So we had a flame that was kind of flickering at the bottom of the hot water heater, that it just needed to be reignited. And I felt like I could do that, and we did. The first 2 years in Justin's time there, we won basically 20 games, 19 games, and played for an ACC championship and had a chance to compete for another one. And we did. My last year at Tech, we beat Virginia the last game of the year. That was the first time. I have to throw that out. The first time in 15 years they won. But, if we win that one, we're going to the ACC championship again. So we did kind of turn things back around. And I felt like I was a big part of that. But, Whit Babcock came to me right away and said, Bud, you would be a great head coach. I don't doubt that. But I think, and I'm not for sure who the powers that be felt like we needed to maybe go in a different direction. But they wanted me to be around. They wanted to keep me around. And I guess I've been rewarded, by being retained and as an assistant to the AD for my loyalty. And I appreciate that. And I love it here. I've, my life outside of football, my quality of life was important to me. I had many of opportunities to leave. I worked, I thought, for the best head coach in the business, not just in wins, but I'm talking about how he treated people. And that was a big part. And, we grinded as hard as anybody, but we also had a life outside of football, and he cared about family. And so that's what kind of kept me here. But also why I wanted that job, because Virginia Tech's a little bit different kind of place. And I think it's a family driven place and a very passionate, as there's the Hokie Nation's kind of a certain group. And I think I could have been that guy that could have continued and catapulted us back up to where we had, those kind of seasons and success in prior years.
Well, and I've said to him, and he sometimes kind of rolls his eyes at me because he does enjoy the role he has now at Tech. But obviously, when he announced his retirement from coaching, we had to sit down, and he was offered some pretty amazing opportunities. And, I'll be honest, just from our conversations, I just don't think that he had the stomach to compete against Tech at this point with all the years he put in and everything that they've built here. It's a special place to him. And so, I would look at him and be like, yeah, you just don't want to, I don't think you'd want to see any dismantling of something that he worked so hard for and he cares so much about. So he looks at me like that, but he really did have some amazing opportunities. And I just feel the one thing this man is he has a strong allegiance to Tech, and he's very loyal.
Well, and I told Jessie, really, the big part was I'd be committing suicide. That's kind of why I retired, was because of health reasons. And I can't do anything, just not full speed, and not be all in and not give of myself. And, that about, cost me, some future moments, so that's a big part of it too. I mean, people don't, and I think Jessie, she just saw the tail end of my career, and she did not see and she saw though what the investment that coaches make at this level and what it takes to compete and perform at a high level and get from recruiting to just dealing with the boys on a day-to-day basis. And it's a 365 24/7, job. And I didn't think she really realized that investment that it takes until she was a part of it. And
I'm still amazed at the hours and the commitment, and also the relationships. A lot of these young men, they're leaving their families. He's set in their living room. He has relationships with the parents and with the kids, and there'd be many an evening or a weekend where one would call and want to talk to him, and not necessarily about football, but just something that life has thrown at him or a life choice. And so he was a mentor on so many different levels. So it's not just the hours of football. That I'm still amazed at the level of commitment that takes. I just literally had no idea of the hours.
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by The Nerve Company. Never underestimate radical vision. It takes nervy to be a company this great. What does Jamie King think about that? We'll find out next on Sports Love Life.
Well, I think you guys have shown so much leadership in your community. And, again, it's obviously, you have dedicated your life to the things that you feel are important and you're passionate about. And I wonder if you have any advice to give to the younger generation, people who have different dreams, different goals, and sometimes maybe they do hit some roadblocks. And they might be apt to call it quits or say maybe they're just not cut out for it. And especially for people who are especially trying to get into a field where I think it's really hard to break in, like being an athlete, being a professional athlete. It's really, really difficult. Even when you have talent and skill, it might take a while before you really get to where you need to go. So what kind of advice do you have for our younger generation and have these goals for themselves?
That's a good question. From dealing with young people all my life, and Jessie's, she's a great leader as well. And, I would say you set goals for yourself. And I think one of the biggest things, and I've talked to different groups, I think adaptability is a big, big part of that. I mean, you set goals. If you don't have goals, and I think getting a young person, finding a mentor, somebody that, and I would challenge anybody that's listening that's older to take somebody under their wing, particularly young people. And I have a foundation that we give scholarships to kids in our area in several counties. But I just like to invest in their future because I think the youth is our future. But they need some guidance. They need people to help them understand that things aren't always going to go the way we want them. You set your goals, let them understand, that there's a variety of goals and you're always kind of, maybe change them. It may have but you have to, as you swim upstream, you have to have adaptability towards reaching those goals. And, but I've always said, stay true to yourself, believe in what you believe in, understanding that there's going to be bumps in the road. That's kind of defines who you are and your character a little bit. And, and the only person stopping you is you. Now, to be a professional athlete, that takes there's just only, that's such a few percentage of people in the world, because that's the most competitive job I think out there almost. And it's such a short-lived career, particularly in the NFL. The NFL we always use stands for not for long, because you can ask some of those guys, even a guy like Mike Singletary, who was one of my all-time favorites to watch play. I mean, he went on to coaching, but, if he plays 10, 12 years, I mean, he's going to retire as a 32, 33-year-old man. He still has the majority of his adult life ahead of him, but he's had the foundation through goal setting, through dealing with the success and adversity, being true to himself, but understanding adaptability and all those kind of things to move on and create something after football. And that's where I've always challenged our guys. And I don't know, Dr. Judy, if I created this, it's the lunch pail defense and the lunch pail mentality at Virginia Tech. And that lunch pail is not just, it stood for hard work. We wanted to do something that was going to separate ourselves, but it was so much more. It's really a toolbox for life. And obviously those tools about communication, about commitment, about goal setting, about dealing, being dependable, accountable, trustworthy, loyal, all those things that's what it took to be successful in the field, but that's also what it's going to take to be successful off the field. And that's where I would challenge the young people is bring your toolbox every day, bring your lunch pail every day. You know, it might be it might be a little simple as a backpack, but you know, those are your goals, your mission, your whatever it may be. And I would say this, even to this day, I still set goals. I set different goals now, but they're for my family. You know, and for Jessie and I, for my kids, my grandkids, for her kids. And you always, not that you're reinventing yourself, but stick to truly who you are and what you believe in, and be able to change and adjust. And I think more than ever, as you know, this time we have now goes by so fast and things are changing. I mean, technology changes. Everything just seems like it's a quick fix and all that, and everybody's looking for that. But, you know, the grass isn't greener on the other side all the time. Be true to who you are. Believe and have good standards, you know, be demanding, but also my ultimate deal, and I learned this from my mom, and that's where maybe I feel how Jessie feels about me is, in the end of the day, if you treat all people with dignity and respect, then you can earn loyalty, you can earn trust, and that's all given. That's a give and take. But if you do that, then you have a chance to succeed at whatever you decide to do. Now, each of us has different skill sets that we've got to develop and learn and grow and those type of things. But again, just be true to yourself. And, you know, the only person stopping you is you. And I will say this about coaches that want to get into coaching. Don't get into coaching for the money. I mean, obviously, it's gotten crazy, you know, particularly at the Power 5 level. But you're into coaching to, obviously my livelihood was win football games. But my mission was to mentor and develop and build young people to be successful in life. And that's kind of really what I would challenge young coaches to do, because when you do that, you earn the respect, you earn the loyalty, you earn the trust. And kids will run through a wall for you if they truly believe that you have their best interest at heart. And that's one thing that I always try to do. I was very honest and upfront and forward. And that's one thing I would tell the young people, you know, be who you are, be true to who you are, but treat people the right way. And they'll move mountains for you if they can.
Jessie, I wanted to ask you in terms of your relationship, the blended family you talk about. I grew up with an abusive stepfather, went through the worst things you could imagine. To see what Coach brings to your family and what you bring to his, and what's your best advice to families out there that are blended, maybe just starting or ones that have been together? What would you give advice-wise as far as bringing blended families in and getting the most out of a blended family in terms of start to finish?
I think mainly be patient with each other, be patient with yourself, be patient with all the other family members and children and grandchildren involved, because it's a process. And I think, you know, we all just had to learn how to communicate with each other and learn how each individual in the family communicates. We just didn't have all the years, like I didn't have all the years with his children to really understand how they each communicate. And he had kind of a fast track with mine because we still have one at the house. So I think just be patient. And I think one thing that we probably anticipated that we were mistaken on is we sort of felt like since our kids were older, that somehow this process would be easier on them. And what we realized is, I guess maybe when they're younger, there's difficulties, but I mean, you can do a lot, you know, at Chuck E. Cheese in a day, where at this point, what they see is you're forever changing the traditions in their household for the holidays. And, you know, it's complicated it obviously for all parties involved. And so I think you just keep rising to the occasion. You keep communicating. We've had our bumps through the way, and certainly, like I said, we didn't give the proper notice to the fact that even though our children were older, that they would have although different, they would have different challenges with this. And I mainly see it in the traditions, because we have new traditions now, and not everyone's at one house anymore. And so be patient, set new traditions, keep communicating. And a lot of that is with each other, you know.
And that's been a fun dynamic. It's been interesting. Like she said, I think with being my children are a little older than hers. And one of my children, particularly who I thought would have handled our divorce and some of those things. And I'm not taking sides. I didn't want any of that at all. I mean, you know, it was a decision that we made as an adults, and they weren't involved in that at all. But one of my children really, who I didn't think would take it hard, really did. And it's kind of surprised me. But the whole thing is still, I think, is communication was the key to that, and being open-minded, and understanding their emotions, and that they were going to have different emotions, and that we understand that, and we're there for them. We want to be a sounding board. We may not always agree. They may not agree with us, but the one thing that we can do as families do is communicate. And that's what we are. And we're going to continue to be that way. But it's really turned out now. And I think COVID, going back with Dr. Judy, I think COVID really helped that, because because we were isolated so much, but when we did spend time outside of Jessie and I, it was with our families, and that brought all of us together. And I think that created such a special environment for us.
And it's nice because our kids actually blended together very well. Like there's 6 between his 3 and my 3, and then grandkids. But if you get those 6 together, you would almost think that they were, they had grown up together. They have inside jokes and knucklehead things that they say. And, so I think they're realizing now that there are other people that will forever be a part of their lives that are meaningful. They're going to add value. One thing that, when you talk about advice, I think one thing that we both have done, and I think you had to be a little bit more consistent, is that, we are married. And so you're going to respect the other partner. So you may be my child, but there will be no disrespect. So we were very clear with all of our kids that, there were parameters, and we wouldn't allow any disrespect. If they had anything to say, we could all talk about it, but there was not going to be any of the biting things. And we're just up front, and he was always consistent. I've been consistent, but honestly, after we got through just a few of, just the growing pains, I hate to say it, I'm gonna knock on wood, but I think it's gone incredibly well, considering that it's asking a lot. You hear Lola?
You can hear our tack dog.
I told you she had to make a cameo.
She must have known Dr. Judy was on tonight, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, she needs counseling.
Well, I love how you guys brought up this idea of communication, because communication is really the bedrock of all solid relationships. And it's also, conversely, what essentially breaks up relationships of all kinds, romantic, families, friendships, etc. And I think everybody knows the importance of communication, at least theoretically, but what are some of the practical tips that you can give, advice you can give about how to really keep that communication line open, particularly when you need to talk about difficult stuff, because no matter how much you love somebody, you might disagree at some point. And, you do have to air that out and actually talk to them directly, or else it kind of builds up and people start to resent, or they start to withdraw. And that's obviously no good for any kind of relationship. So what is some of your practical tips about how to keep that in great shape?
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Snow and their outstanding teeth whitening systems. Go to trysnow.com. Jamie and Dr. Judy love their snow kits, and so will you.
Well, I would say be open, and Jessie's a lot better than I am with it, because my relationship in the past towards where I was going, there was a communication barrier, and she is she's a great communicator, a lot better than I am. But that was one of my keys to success that I used with my players was communication. And that starts it all. And when we became a couple, that was the one thing. And I even think maybe in her marriage, there might've been a little bit of that, and maybe not as much as mine, but I knew that for me, that was a barrier that I needed to, be consistent with, expressing my feelings. And I'm still probably not the best at doing that, but she pulls that out of me. And I do think, just being able to sit down, and I was one probably a little bit combative early, when we'd want to, or I'd be agitated that I had to explain myself, but we've really just sat down and we've talked about a lot of different issues, from how I handled certain things to maybe how she handled certain things. Just, being open, being transparent, with our kids. We, like I said, we've had a couple that had some issues, but you know what? Both of us each talked to those individuals. Like her youngest son might have been the one that had the biggest issue, but I hope he's somebody that that he feels like he can come and talk to me about anything. He comes to me for advice and asks me for some some things. But I just think just being open, being transparent. We have nothing to hide. That's kind of where we are. And I think with young couples, sometimes you can be careful about, trying to hide something. I think as we're older now, we have nothing to hide. There's nothing that I don't like, from my phone to whatever. I don't have anything that I don't want her to see, or I want her to be able to ask me anything, and I'm open for that, and vice versa. And I don't know if that answers the question, techniques. But
I think a part of it is, for me, there are subjects that I do know that I shut down on. I know that I have a tendency to shut down. And so he recognizes that. And so he'll be able to say, all right, so
I know something's bothering you.
I can tell by the way you just slammed your glass down that there might be something on your mind right now, right? So I think it's just, I think first knowing what your own patterns are. And certainly, I had my own too. But I think because we both did come from long-term marriages, we learned some lessons. And so there will be times now when we may not be communicating effectively, and one of us will say, all right, so let's backtrack. So what are we trying to accomplish? What are we really trying to say here? And that's important, because you can very easily transpose what you think someone is trying to say. And so there's a lot of,
we actually had a big discussion just about chips the other day,
oh
believe
my
it or not, about
gosh.
potato chips.
We were gonna die on the hill over potato chips. So we had to laugh and be like, I was like, are we dying on the hill about these sour cream and onion potato chips out of all the things? But
I think, just being open-minded, transparent, and knowing that you care about somebody so much, that you are so emotionally tied into that, you want them to know your feelings and you want to know theirs. And and like I said, men at times, we have that, that macho image that we can't show any emotion or those kind of things, I think. And that's the one thing that she's, that I've tried to bring to the table that she's probably pulled out of me more. But, I think just being transparent, being emotionally tied in will, open those lines that you need to, because I'm with you. I think that's the biggest part. That's what I always told our kids. To me, that's the most important thing, that we were all on the same page and we're in it together. And we may not like what we're going to hear sometimes, but if we believe that it's in the best interest of all of us, then we'll listen and try to work through things.
And vulnerability may not be our best suit overall. And so I think it's also just allowing ourselves to be raw and to be vulnerable and to communicate honestly. It sounds so easy when I say it out loud, but vulnerability has been, it's a challenge, and it's something that we both have talked about and we recognize, and something, that we'll probably always, to some extent, continue to work on and check ourselves on, because, we weren't born the day we were in this marriage. And so we all have our own past that we bring into it. And I would say vulnerability for both of us is something we'll always be challenged.
And we're strong, we're strong-headed and strong-willed, each of us in our own way. And so, but that we understand that, and she's dynamic at what she does. And I'm kind of riding her coattails now, since I'm kind of on the backside of coaching,
Coach, I'm proud of you. I saw you picking up the signals. You're channeling your inner Dr. Judy, basically, is what you're telling her.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. As coaches, we wear a lot of hats, Now I don't have a degree in any of that, but I worked hard to have some guys lay their head on my couch in my office.
Hey, listen, I have to ask you one final question from me. Back on April 16, 2007, and one of the worst days in our nation's history, of course, the shootings at Virginia Tech, 32 people killed, 23 people wounded. And Coach, you're there during that time. I just want to ask you, because you've always said to me, some of the most beautiful people on earth, the most beautiful place on earth, in terms of, if you haven't been to Blacksburg, Virginia, you have to go there. My brother Steve, my daughter Jenny, we love the place. You love the place. To take you back there, not talking about what happened,
right,
but the aftermath. Can you speak to the wonderment and the beauty of the people and the togetherness and the resiliency, and put it into words in terms of how that community came together? Because it's something that very few people that aren't in there can see it every day. But can you speak to that?
I can't do it eloquently enough to put it in perspective. I do know this. That was such an emotional time for so many. And as you know, how the news media and want to project, and I'm not saying this, but there of negativity of different things. And I think more than anything, I think the nation and the world saw a special place come together, and it really showed the trueness of this, of what people think about Virginia Tech and what it's all about. It is a truly as a big school. It comes across as a tiny school because you don't walk around as a social security number. You are a human being. You are important. People care about you. And I think the nation saw that. And, when we rebounded from that, my heart still goes out to, those families. I had the names of the victims in the lunch pail. We carried that for the whole time I was there. I still have them on my locker in the locker at the office. But I just think the nation and the world saw a very caring, heartfelt place, and it's continued. It thrived after that, where people thought, we'd lose enrollment and things of that nature. Our enrollment, actually, people wanted to be here because they saw a truly caring place, and that's how it is. It's just not on campus; it's in the community. It's everything involved. But I think that's what came out of this. I think Nikki Giovanni, who I have the utmost respect for, did an awesome job in describing what a Hokie was and that type of thing. But, America saw that this was a special place.
Wow, what a night. It's flown by, and I know Judy feels the same as I do. You guys are one special couple. We thank you so much for opening up to us and telling us your stories. And we heard some before the show even started that I didn't know about. And you guys are a fun couple. You have a lot of fun. You're so together. And Judy, I know you feel the same way.
Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your insights. And you guys are just shining pillars in our community. We're so fortunate to have you. And thank you for imparting your valuable advice for everybody listening.
Well, thank you for having us. We when Jamie reached out, I was really, really excited. So it's a pleasure for us to be here, and thank you again so much.
Thank you both. And we'll be right back. You've been watching Sports 11 Life with Bud and Jessie Foster. We'll be back with Dr. Judy in overtime after these.
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Mission Belts. No holes, always fits. Isn't it time you join the mission? It's time to hear from your hosts with their thoughts on today's episode. It's overtime on the Sports Love Life Show.
And welcome back to Overtime with Dr. Judy. And Dr. Judy, your thoughts on Bud and Jessie Foster in that interview tonight, a special couple that haven't been together forever, but boy, they feel that they found the soulmate in each other, and they are a special couple indeed.
I love their positive energy and how much they're doing for the community. And I really love their advice too. I felt like it was really practical, and they're so real and understand the pulse of what people are dealing with today.
And of course, the blended family. And I know you counsel folks that have families that come together. Great advice on how to stay together. And at the core of everything, I felt communication was the key to their relationship. And I know that's something you preach a lot in your daily practice as well.
I think communication is just the key to every relationship, whether it's work, dating, family, whatever you want to, apply that skill to. And communication is the most important soft skill, in my opinion, to work on. And everybody has a different idea of how to communicate better. But I really like some of their tips. And, just that idea of like, if you just show that genuine interest in someone else and that you want to know them and you want to know what's bothering them and what makes them tick, that's a great start. People really do understand, even if you make some mistakes along the way, that if your intentions are good and you're really just trying to understand them, they'll be willing to engage in conversation with you, even on difficult topics.
And of course, with families that come together that have, children from one part and children from another come together, what's your best advice in terms of how to ease into those transitional times? Because sometimes it's not always as easy as some people say, just, pull together and make it happen. It's not always that easy. What's the best advice in terms of blended families overall coming together?
I think it's definitely important to try to do things gradually and not to rush the process, and to allow a lot of opportunities for back and forth conversations and time with the biological parent away from the added parent, let's say, so that they have time to talk about things honestly, and also know that if your children are, saying things where they say that they miss their, other biological parent, or sometimes they don't seem to warm up right away to your new partner, doesn't mean that things are doomed. It's just, these are regular reactions to accepting people eventually into your blended family. So even if it's not really smooth all the time, that doesn't mean that it's destined for disaster. It's really just about having that open forum where you can continue to discuss, and also accepting whatever feelings they are having at the time and not trying to force something down their throat too quickly.
All right. And of course, let all the viewers and listeners know where they can catch everything Dr. Judy. Everybody wants to know, how can I follow her? Where can I find her? Can you please fill us in?
Absolutely. So you guys can check me out on my Instagram at Dr. Judy Ho, or see what I'm up to on my website, drjudyho.com. And again, it's always great to be with you, Jamie. You always have great guests, and they're always so open to discussing their personal lives and ways that are helpful to others. So great job. Another slam dunk, I think.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you folks, Dr. Judy is absolutely the best in the business, bar none. And we are so blessed to have her. Once again, a great job by you. We love having you, and you are incredible at what you do. And we'll see you again next week. Folks, for Dr. Judy, I'm Jamie King. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Sports, Love, and Life. Have a great night.